Cheers, everybody.
Cheers, guys.
Trying Asahi.
Right, first thoughts.
This is my first time.
Asian beer is very similar across the board. I find they're light, they're refreshing, they're meant to be drunk cold, and with really good Asian food.
Right, should we start let's start the setup on it. Hello, and welcome to I'll Try That, the beer review and news podcast.
Each week we'll be looking at a different brewery in the pursuit of hoppiness, analysing what makes them them, and of course, talking about the beer. In each episode we'll talk about a beer-related news topic from around the world in the hop topic.
Let's get going.
I'll Try That, the beer review and news podcast.
Here in London.
Ding dong.
I was thinking about this last night in bed.
Smashed it. Proof for success.
As a soon-to-be fur daddy. Another one in the bag.
I'm vetoing that.
This week, in the pursuit of hoppiness, we'll be checking out cherry blossoms and origami with Asahi beer from Japan. But first up, the hop topic.
Let's get stuck into the hop topic.
Joe, I hear you have a hot topic for us.
Yep. Unfortunately, because of everything that's going on with COVID, it's affected a lot of different areas. But one area very close to all of our hearts is the wastage of pints or beer.
It hurts.
Sacrilege.
It hurts. Recent facts showing that the Welsh country is losing up to 2.8 million pints. That's 350,000 gallons of beer because of the lack of people buying it.
That's a painful statistic to hear.
The beer gods are crying. It must be financially terrifying to have to waste so much alcohol, because that is literally down the drain.
Of course, no one could have expected this to have happened. Of course not. But just think that amount of waste, because we just know brewers really care about their environment. They talk a lot about their environmental and sustainability practices.
So it's just out of curiosity, is there not another use for all of this beer in some sort of sense?
What other usage of that?
Yeah.
Is there any use for that? Is it just the fact that it's just beer and you just have to throw it away? Again, we'll have someone on one day who can talk about that. But I know there are other brewers who aren't just making beer.
You're talking about the fact that it's a lot of wastage of alcohol, which some companies are using that to create alternative energy. So, for instance, I know that also Guinness use it to help fertilise Christmas trees.
That's cool.
And so, for instance, I know that Guinness themselves have come out and they're using that would have been wasted as a way to fertilise Christmas trees. So there's actually quite a high nutrient value to Guinness. And the business owner himself has come out and said it's really important that we look after the businesses and we look after Ireland.
I've got a bit more of a out there idea that it's been proven that it works is actually washing your hair in beer.
Go on.
So it adds a shine thanks to the vitamin B and the natural sugars.
I think beer can be used for not just washing of hair, washing of clothes could also work.
Yeah?
I think as long as you can get the right detergent and powder to take the smell away from it, because no one likes wet beer on clothes, it's mostly water.
I am remembering a horrible history of my life where I was coated in alcoholic beverage in Spain. And I can tell you for now, never clean your clothes in beer. Do not do it. No, it is wrong.
All right, that's fair. I hadn't properly thought that idea. So long story short, let's stop wasting beer, or let's help them to not waste beer.
And now for some Pursuit of Hoppiness.
Pursuit of hoppiness.
Pursuit of Hoppiness.
Pursuit of hoppiness.
If you guys don't mind, Pursuit of Hoppiness time.
So this week we're talking about Asahi, which is the number one beer in Japan. I mean, for me, Japanese beer, you think Asahi. It's crisp, it's a lager, specifically it's the Superdry beer. So Asahi is a pretty common name in Japan. You know, you might find Asahi Shinbun, which is a national newspaper. So definitely check out Asahi and Superdry.
I actually don't know of any other beer from Japan.
Poro. There you go. That's two beers from Japan.
It's not a competition.
I was like, I know there's another beer. I mean, Asahi is Japan, Japanese beer.
Beer is half the alcohol consumed in Japan.
It's beer.
Beer.
So what I love about Asahi when I was doing a bit of like digging into them, of course we know Tokyo, Japan, that's where they're from, that's where they're HQ'd. But they've actually got 16 plants to make beer in Europe. They have 3 in America, 1 in China, and 16 in Australasia, and 34 in total in Japan. That's what they call their plants.
So they're huge then.
They are massive.
Yeah.
I mean, with their recent acquisition of SAB Miller Europe, they've become one of the largest beer companies in the world.
I feel like they're subtly successful. Like I've never seen an advert for Asahi on the TV, or I just know it's a good beer.
And then we're talking here, obviously, specifically here in the UK.
In the UK, yeah. As in, I might be wrong, because obviously in America they might pummel you with advertising, but I've never seen it advertised.
So I think maybe we can dive in here about the history of Asahi and where that kind of came about. Obviously, we know Japanese. It started in 1889 as the Osaka Brewing Company. So based on German brewing techniques, specifically in mind for Japanese tastes. 1892 is when we start seeing actually Asahi beer being launched. So if originally Asahi was just the beer under the Osaka Brewing Company.
The super dry taste that we're having today is actually from 1987. It's actually, say it's modern, but it's more modern than the company itself. This super dry is what's iconic about Asahi.
So what I quite liked about Asahi as well is they've been quite the forefront in certain things. So they canned the first beer in Japan.
So they were the first canned beer in Japan. And they were the first aluminium canned beer, which seems very similar, but actually very technologically big jump.
That kind of fits with the theme of Japan in my mind. Japan's always seemed to be at the forefront of a lot of technology and industry, and I think that kind of fits quite well with it.
So coming back to that technology and industry statement, they pumped out an advert.
You're just a beautiful man, mate.
Do that bit again, that was great. That's exactly how you did it, it was good.
So on thinking about technology and innovation, they put an advert out, and it was called the Monkey Beer. I put the link in our description a bit later on once we've finished.
You don't need to say they know that we're not going to do it.
After I've been to the toilet.
Right, guys, stop. Everyone stop the podcast.
Fine, I'll go again.
Just for my point, is it just a specific ad or is it a whole campaign?
It was a whole campaign of talking about innovation and technology. Asahi put out an ad, I believe called the Monkey Beer ad, which we'll put a link to in our description. It's a really, really good watch. It's about a minute, but the whole idea bring the culture of Japan, but linked with the technology. So the whole thing is you're being panned and shot through this. I suppose the best way to describe it is like an underground lair, and you go into different rooms each time, and then you've got robot geishas that are pruning bonsai bushes, and then they go into a tank which has a giant squid attacking somebody. Still these high-powered businessmen, but it's flashing through, and you're going through until you finally pan up onto the Asahi. But the whole thing was behind that they were trying to combine the two cultures that were coming in.
If I'm honest, that sounds like it sounds very Japan, but it also sounds like an interesting, like, modern take. Like, they're playing up to their own kind of what they're known as in the world. Like, rather than trying to shy away and say they're not something that they're
owning
like,
it.
what they talk about, their cultures, their values, it speaks for what we, I guess, perceive as being very Japanese, which is very down to its core. They have very strong beliefs. Talking about the sustainability practices across everything, water sustainability, other environmental areas, using less and recycling water, of course, but affordable and clean energy. But a big area that came about for me, which they talk a lot about, is actually human rights.
Oh, okay.
Is a part of what they talk about. Usually you think human rights, you're thinking activism, you're thinking, kind of talking about, where they've been against it. But actually what they're talking about human rights is looking after each human. So as an operating business, they are looking after your rights as a human.
Yeah.
So it's about it's their way of saying being ethical. What we would describe as being ethical. Being an ethical organization.
How are they incorporating this?
It's just down to how they operate as a business. So everything felt like they're putting their people. What I've managed to glean off the internet, it'd be great to have an Asahi spokesperson one day to consider the full details. But for what I've got from online, they're talking about getting their people to understand what human rights is and how better incorporate that into their business.
Almost like kind of making their company making themselves more aware of the situation.
So I suppose they're trying to build a culture would be the best way to describe it.
Yeah, I mean, they say that it's linked to their Asahi Group code of conduct as well, who they operate as a business. And I think, let's not forget, Asahi, as we said before, is this macro brewery. They're huge.
Yeah.
They're a massive organization. So you'll find this, I think, we'll start seeing maybe some more themes with big organizations. They have to really drill down on what they stand for and how that incorporates their people.
I mean, it must be really hard to actually make that consistent thing across their whole company when they're so huge, as you said before, like they're in Europe, they're in America, they're in Japan. Like, to make sure that the Japanese values actually happen all over the world must be really difficult.
Yeah, I mean, how do you export a company's culture globally? I mean, I think going back to the kind of the community, what I liked about their kind of community side of things is actually they do a lot of collaborations. DJs, choreographers, artists as well, all like Japanese roots.
I looked into their website a little bit, and we'll put the link in the description again, about listening bar cultures. They've got this big kind of push about the fact they're linking with music and like the music scene in Japan. Now, obviously, I'm not aware of what the music scene in Japan is like. I do wish to go to Japan, and I will probably go because I've heard about it. And I think it's just really interesting how they're trying to incorporate themselves into the society that they live in.
That's nice. Nice touch. Bring that out and try and emphasise it.
Well, I think it goes to that when we're talking, as you said before, Asian beers, it's very easily paired with food.
Yeah.
Japanese food, so eating some sushi or sake, you're going to have, and the option of a Asahi or a Sapporo.
Yeah.
What's the really like famous drink that you have in Japan?
Sake.
Sake, yeah.
Sake's their like spirit. It's
Very
delicious. So Korea, Japan, they love the karaoke. This is a drinking occasion where you can have it with food. It's light enough that you can. It's not going to impact the food at all.
Yeah.
I mean, as in the taste wise, for me, this is very light.
I think we should talk about it. 5.2%.
Oh, okay.
That's quite
Quite a lot.
strong.
That's
more.
actually.
But it doesn't taste like that, which
No.
I think is quite. It
Yeah.
doesn't. I don't feel like I'm drinking something that is strong. I feel like I'm nice tasting, light, refreshing drink, which I think is quite surprising when you hear 5.2. I think it doesn't feel like that. I think it is quite light. And
Well, if you look back over the past couple of weeks, some of the ales we've been drinking, they were a lower percentage, but felt considerably heavier than this is.
as in, I feel like with those ones, you knew you were having, like, it felt like you needed to take your time with it. Whilst this is nice, it's like you can take away and you can move around with it.
I mean, they describe themselves as clean. I think that's spot on for me. I think this is a clean beer. Like, you feel, I mean, it's beer after all, so how clean can a beer be? But it's easy to drink. Pair it with food you through the day. Think about where it's brewed in, where it's intended for Japanese taste buds in the environment that's meant to be for.
And I do think this is probably quite popular in Australia. I'd love to see some stats. Maybe our fat man can get some stats up, but I think it'd be really interesting to see how popular it would be in Australia.
I think you need to really emphasise the fact. It definitely sounds like you're saying fat man.
It's calling me a fat man.
I'm not sure we want that.
Yeah, I refuse this to be an ongoing joke that we're going to refer to me as the fat man of the podcast.
Am I saying fat?
We can call Husky.
I'm trying to say fat. I'm so sorry. It's not. It must be Max.
We all have the same accent.
So one thing I want to talk about, obviously, we always talk about where you can find these beers, where you can find out more information about them. Obviously, the website, quite a few, the group one, asahibeer.co.uk for us in the UK.com for US and abroad. Because they're this macro brewery that are sold in so many different places, they have segmented up their marketing efforts. So you'll find so many different Twitter accounts. You'll find so many different official Instagram accounts. Their Untapped is just Asahi as a general thing. I think Untapped does that well in just kind of keeping it about the brewery and then about the beers, and people can write and review, keep it simple. The reach of these brewers through these social media platforms is slightly stifled because you see it with these numbers. In the UK, Instagram, they only have 4,606 followers on one of these accounts, which is crazy. For the size that they are, they should be up in the 20, 30s. We'd expect them maybe even to be breaching up the 100,000s.
Did we said they were one of the biggest distributors or the biggest
brewers in the world
now. Was it the third, maybe, I think? Along those lines?
With this recent purchase of SAB on like last couple of years, they now own Meantime Brewery as well. They now own Birra Moretti.
They own Birra Moretti.
London Pride Fullers comes under the Asahi. I don't know what the full relationship is, if they own them or if they've just got distribution. Maybe Fats Checker can sort that out for us.
We're not going down this line again.
We actually did some information on like how popular it is in Australia. It's the top selling Asian beer in Australia.
Top selling Asian beer.
Yeah.
It should be, because it products itself very well and it's spread itself across the world.
But you've also got, in the Asian beer category, you've got so many other great contenders there.
That's very true, yeah.
And I think that just speaks back to Asahi, the kind of the history behind them, that it's always been a good standout product. I mean, look at it. It looks clean. It owns that kind of aluminium-y steel-looking colour.
I've even got a fact to prove how dedicated they are to brewing Asahi beer. Apparently, a large Asahi brewery located 57 kilometers from the Fukushima nuclear power plant. When it went off, they shut everything down on March 11th, but then it opened again in May. The radiation detectors put everywhere for product safety, and Asahi resumed production in an earthquake-damaged plant. They installed radiation detectors to make sure the beer produced in the plant was within the safety limits.
That is insane.
I mean, business has got a business, right?
Yeah.
You think, give your people a bit of time off.
Yeah.
So also to note that we know Asahi for the beer, but they are also a spirits and food and general beverage company.
Yeah.
So they have a wide range of food products as well that they sell. So you can buy Asahi cough sweets, I think is one of the products I saw online. It's an interesting one. This is an Asahi holding company, which the brewery is one part of.
Yeah.
So I think when we're thinking of how big this organization is and where their reach is, it's, you know, it's across different areas. I mean, we probably won't find Asahi food-based products here in the UK or in the US, maybe in specialized stores, but it's big. And that's all we have time for this week's episode of the I'll Try That podcast. And so from me, Joe,
Rich,
And Simmo.
goodbye. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram,
Twitter,
And watch us on YouTube.
Goodbye now. Always drink responsibly, and if you or anyone else needs some help, go to drinkaware.co.uk for more information.